Welcome back. Now that we have an understanding of Monroe's motivated sequence and you got some practice putting a short speech together using it, let's talk speech topics. So you can't have a good speech without a solid topic. So this is some important stuff. Hopefully this looks familiar to you. So again, just as a reminder, we are using the 5 steps of Monroe's motivated sequence to organize our speech this round. But what's the speech? I am so glad that you asked. So we will be delivering 5 to 6 minute persuasive speeches, and your goal here is to convince your audience members to take some kind of action or make some kind of behavioral change in order to solve a problem or fulfill a need. Hopefully that sounds familiar. So again, we're using Monroe's to organize our speech, and we're really zooming in on like steps 2 and 3 here when we're talking about topic development. The need and the satisfaction steps 2 and 3, those are going to make up the bulk of your speech. So again, those are the 2 steps that we're going to sort of zoom in on for this lecture so that you can start choosing and developing that speech topic. So overall, 5 to 6 minutes, we are trying to get our audience to take some kind of action. That's what we're trying to persuade them to do. These requirements are the same as our previous speech round. You'll still be using your media literacy and research skills to bolster the claims that you make in this speech. So we're still focusing on that argumentation formula. Same as last round, that claim, evidence, and reasoning formula throughout the speech. As always, as we've talked about all semester, we are adapting our content to our audience, and that includes the topic that you choose. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. We'll be talking this round also about persuasive appeals. We'll cover that towards the end of this module, and we'll talk about how you can incorporate various persuasive appeals into your speech effectively and ethically. As far as delivery goes this round, we're focusing on gestures, we're focusing on energy, and as usual, we will talk about that after you've got your content set and we're ready to kind of move on to the practicing stage of the speech. Your big deliverable this module, just like last round, is an outline. Right now, we're just going to worry about the skeleton outline, so it doesn't have to be perfect and refined, but that's what we will go over during your individual feedback meetings with me. So these are kind of our focuses this round, but let's jump into what this video is really about. So how to choose a speech topic. Like I said, to put together kind of the bulk of your speech, you'll need to, number 1, present a problem or a need, and number 2, propose a solution to that problem or a satisfaction to that need. So again, we are focusing on steps 2 and 3 of Monroe's motivated sequence. This right here is the format that you will propose your topics in. Problem plus solution, or need plus satisfaction. Essentially, those are saying the same thing, and I'm going to use those interchangeably, but we've got 2 puzzle pieces that we need to fit together in order to have a really solid speech topic. A couple of important things to keep in mind. The solution that you are proposing in the second half of this needs to be something that your audience is actually capable of accomplishing. So that means like no policy decisions. Like maybe you think a universal basic income or UBI is a great solution to a whole bunch of problems. Solid topic, but implementing universal basic income in the United States is not really something your audience members are able to do or accomplish in the near future. Not yet, at least. I'd also like the solution to be a little bit more direct action than just maybe signing a change.org petition or voting. To be honest, those solutions in speeches end up being kind of hard to make fully formed speeches out of. So, because there's honestly just not much to say there, you'll get bored, I promise. So take my word on this. Make sure it's something that it's reasonable for your audience to implement, and I want it to be a little bit more direct. Other things to think about when you are brainstorming and considering potential topics, and don't worry, we'll go over lots of examples in a minute. Other things to consider, you should choose a problem or a solution. So that's that first chunk of your speech. You should choose a problem or solution that impacts your specific audience. That doesn't necessarily mean it can't be a big or maybe even a global issue. It just means that you will need to convince your audience that this problem that you're telling us about is actually negatively impacting them and their lives or their communities. You need to be able to show your audience, here's why it's a problem. Here's why this is a need. Here are the bad kind of repercussions that are coming out of it. Here's why it needs to be solved. So make sure it's something that impacts your audience. Just like all of our other speech topics, it should be something that you care at least a little bit about. It will make this whole process less painful, hopefully actually maybe a little bit enjoyable. So choose something that you care about or that you're interested in. It should also be something that your audience is interested in, or at least something that you can make us interested in. Here's a really important one. It needs to be something that your audience could be open-minded about. So this is where you might need to scale down your solution that you're proposing to your audience. For example, convincing all of us to go vegan tomorrow is a pretty hard ask. That's something that your audience might not be open-minded about, but maybe you try to convince us to do meatless Mondays or only have meat 3 times or 4 times a week. That's something that seems more doable and that your audience is much more likely to be open-minded about. And again, like I said, it needs to be actionable, something your audience is capable of doing or implementing in the next days or weeks. So lowering the drinking age in the United States, that's a solution that might satisfy some needs that you have in mind, but changing the drinking age is not something that your audience members can accomplish in the next few days or weeks. I want you instead to think behavior change, not policy change. You're trying to persuade your audience to take some kind of action at the end of the day, right? And finally, make sure that you can find good, quality, reliable sources for your information. If the problem that you want to talk about is procrastination, for example, this is a problem that your audience definitely faces, everyone faces it. If you want to talk about procrastination as a problem, then the solution that you propose will need to be something that you can prove will actually solve this problem or at least address the issue significantly. That means you might need to do a little Googling, a little research before you know the best solution to propose as the second half of your topic. So let's talk brainstorming topics. As you are brainstorming and just trying to come up with some ideas, with some topics, we can brainstorm forwards or backwards, kind of whatever makes most sense to your brain. But these are the 2 puzzle pieces that will eventually need to fit together in order to have that final solid speech topic. So we first have a problem or a need, a problem that is facing your peers or community, something that's affecting them, or something that your peers need. And then the second half would be a solution or a satisfaction. So let's kind of look at how you can brainstorm this forwards or backwards. Maybe you want to start with this puzzle piece. Maybe you want to start by identifying a problem. Maybe you are really passionate about the plight of small businesses in the community. If that's the case, then the problem that is facing your peers or your community is that small businesses are struggling. So if that's your starting point, the next puzzle piece that you need is the solution. So maybe your solution is once a week, try a local restaurant. So that's an example of how we might kind of brainstorm this working forwards. But if that doesn't work for your brain, maybe it's easier for you to sort of work backwards and start with the solution that you know you want and then kind of figure out that problem. So maybe you want to start by thinking of the solution. So brainstorming this backwards. You can start with coming up with something you think your peers should do. What is something you think everyone should start doing? Maybe you know that your end goal is to convince your audience to start meditating for 20 minutes every night before bed. That is like your end goal for this speech. That is what you really want your peers to start doing. So we have this puzzle piece, right? We have this part. What's our missing puzzle piece? We need to figure out the problem that meditating would solve for your audience. So what need do they have that meditation might solve? Well, college students definitely need to find ways to manage their stress in a healthy way. So then we've got our problem or our need, right? Even though we started here and worked backwards, we have a solid problem plus solution topic in the end, and we have the solid puzzle now. So let's talk next steps. Once you have a general topic in mind, no matter what order you pieced the puzzle pieces together in, we have our one unitary kind of idea, right? We need to put our problem or our need first, our solution and satisfaction second. And at that point, we are ready to develop or refine our topic a little bit more. So I want to show you what that process might look like and kind of walk you through the thought process that I take when I'm like trying to refine a topic. So let's start with a problem. When I'm thinking of topics like this, I'm thinking, okay, problem. What's something bad that I don't like? Well, I don't like fast fashion. Great. Solution, stop buying it. So we have a starting point. This is good, but this in and of itself is not quite our end point, right? It's a start though. It's a solid start. Problem is fast fashion, solution, stop buying it. Let's go a little bit further. So when we say that fast fashion is a problem, my next question should be, okay, why? Like, what about this is a problem? Maybe I decide that the reason I think fast fashion is a problem is because it's harming the environment. So I've refined my problem a little bit. Fast fashion is harming the environment. That way I can show my audience like, yes, this is a problem that is impacting you, right? So then we move on to our solution. I've refined this. Awesome. Love it. We're moving on to the solution. Don't buy it. Again, good start, but that in and of itself is not quite a solution, a full solution. What should we do instead is this next question that I'm going to be asking myself. So then I get to maybe my solution is to buy a few quality pieces of clothing that will last a really long time. So I've gone from just fast fashion, stop buying it, to something a little bit more kind of fully fleshed out and a little bit more developed with some more nuance. And we ended with fast fashion is harming the environment So you should buy a few quality pieces of clothing that will last you a long time. So again, we're going from kind of simple ideas and then asking ourselves questions to kind of get a little bit more specific, refine it, and develop it a little bit more. So let's look at some kind of example topics for problems or needs. Again, this is that first puzzle piece. Even if you decide to brainstorm backwards, this will end up being your point 2 in Monroe's motivated sequence, followed by point 3. So maybe we have a need to save money. We need some personal finance in our lives. Maybe we need to reduce meat consumption, like the example I said earlier. Maybe if our need is to reduce meat consumption, our solution will be meatless Mondays. We need stress management. Everyone needs stress management. Energy conservation is a problem or need that has a ton of solutions for you to pick from as far as what you're going to try to convince us to do about it. Time management, kind of like procrastination and stress management, these are sort of evergreen problems that will always work pretty well. We can even get into like smaller things, like you should learn basic first aid, or you should start recycling your plastics or your grocery bags. So the next thing that we get to are kind of that second puzzle piece, right? The satisfaction or solution. This is what you are trying to convince us to do in order to solve that problem. So maybe your end goal is to convince us to start tutoring or mentoring in our community. You'll notice some of these are the same topics, and there's a reason for that. Because maybe you say, we need to learn first aid. Maybe we decide to take this one as a problem or need. So you say, we need to learn first aid. Solution, go enroll in a Red Cross class, right? Or we see something like, again, reducing meat consumption. What if that is kind of our final satisfaction or solution? We'll need to work backwards. What problem does reducing meat consumption solve? That would solve lots of water waste. You know how much water it takes to get like a pound of beef? It's crazy. So we have a problem that we are running out of fresh water on this planet. Maybe a potential solution is to reduce our meat consumption. So again, there are lots of ways that you can work this forwards or backwards, as long as you end up with those two puzzle pieces linked together so that you end up with a solid topic that starts with a problem or solution, starts with a problem or need and ends with a solution. So let's talk next steps going from here. The next thing you're going to do is propose some potential speech topics. Now, these are not blood oaths. If you end up changing your mind and hating these speech topics, in the next 24 hours, that's okay. You can change them. But I want us to start getting some practice and putting together these speech topics using problem and need plus solution. First comes the problem or the need, then comes the solution. Remember that these need to be actionable. They need to be researchable. So to figure out if it's researchable, it might be worth doing a quick preliminary Google search to make sure you can find good stuff about it. If you're feeling a little bit stuck or you're not feeling very inspired, that's okay. The next thing in this module is a link to a list of ideas to kind of get your noggin jogging a little bit. These are not full speech topics, but it might be a part of one. It might be the problem or the need, and then you can come up with the solution to it. So again, go take a look at that list that I've posted if you're needing a little bit of a boost, if you're needing some inspiration, if you're needing some ideas. Please know that when you are submitting these 3 speech topics, you don't have to choose from that list that I posted. That's just a resource for you to use in case you're feeling a little bit stuck, you've got some writer's block.